What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys had a great day out there. Time for a channel first. The first quarterly report that we got from Coinbase, ticker symbol coin, came out today. We are going to go through all the numbers. We'll take a look at some of the key metrics that they have, and then we'll look at the financials as well. A little bit of cash, a little bit of profit, a little bit of everything when you come and look at this company. Now, the stock is bouncing around in the after hours. In fact, I think it traded all the way down to the lows where this stock has been before, down in the 250s, but it's bouncing around as people are digesting this report and taking a look at it. We're sitting here about $260 per share. Again, that's off of where this thing went public at. I think this thing went public in the $400 range, in fact. So, it's been as high as $429 per share. And now we're sitting at about 250, 260 somewhere on this one. So we'll talk about Coinbase. Now, what came out interesting today was one of their competitors, at least especially in the global market, is Binance, is reportedly under a DOJ investigation. So this certainly makes you maybe a little uneasy if you own crypto on any of these platforms until we get more clarity on why Binance is facing probes by the U.S. Justice Department and the IRS, likely due to me, if the IRS is involved, likely to do some kind of financial reporting. So that would make me a little bit nervous, but certainly when we're talking about Coinbase, it's all about their competition. And if the competition is getting wiped out by the United States government, it might actually be good for them. Now, their EPS, which, look, I don't really, when we go over to the financials, we'll talk about EPS and why we don't really look at it, but they did miss on revenue. Okay, revenues came in at 1.8 billion. The street was expecting slightly more than that. Okay. So we'll talk about that as well. Some of the key metrics, though, we don't always talk about this on the show, but I think a earlier stage company like this, it is worth looking at and looking at this type of explosive growth. So we've got these verified users. They've got quarter one, so this is a year ago, and the right-hand column is the most recent quarter. You see we've gone from 34. They don't say what this is in. I'm assuming this is millions, maybe? Maybe the M right there is millions. So 34 million up to 56 million, obviously phenomenal growth. You're also seeing on like a quarterly basis that is accelerating, okay? Because we went from 34 to 37, that's only 3 million. Then we grew 2 million, and then we grew 4 million, and then we grew 13 million. So they are experiencing exponential growth on that verified users. Now, monthly transaction users, active users that are transacting on a regular basis, has gone from 1.3 to 6, and we've seen just over the last couple quarters, that has basically tripled. So just phenomenal growth on that. Trading volume also just exponentially getting bigger. Look, last quarter we were at 89 billion. Now we're up to 335 billion. Wow. And then on the assets on the platform, we've gone from 17 billion a year ago now to 223 billion. That's amazing growth. Just quarter over quarter, we've gone from 90 billion up to $223 billion. Tell you what, as an investor myself, love this. I do. First of all, full disclosure, I don't own any of Coinbase. Okay. Do I use Coinbase? Yes. Do I own any of the stock? Not yet. As we go through these numbers, we'll see if we can make that decision. Now, financial summary we'll get to here in a minute in a little bit more bigger detail. The other thing I want to show you here is this trading volume. So they've got the retail guy, which is maybe someone like me, and then they've got institutions that are maybe buying them on the behalf of clients or something like that. And we're seeing just, again, steady growth here. Okay, it used to be a little bit more, not necessarily swayed till retail, but a little bit even mix between retail and institutional. Now we're seeing major institutional. So that poses some risk, okay? Because look, now a lot of their business, or a fair amount of it, is concentrated in this institutional volume. And so you might say, well, what's the risk there? Well, these institutional guys can easily be wooed away by, let's say, a JP Morgan, a Bank of America, or something like that, Goldman Sachs or something like that. Again, not saying that JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or any of these guys have any interest in this business right now, but it's just something to keep in mind that these institutional guys could get drawn away at some point by a bigger competitor. Whereas this retail, man, we're seeing steady increases, and I would actually expect that to continue because if you use Coinbase, it's a pretty clean platform, pretty clean user interface, very easy to use. that is going to keep the retail guy and girls around. Now, in terms of trading volume, we're seeing that Bitcoin is actually staying rather steady over the last quarter over quarter. This is just giving you maybe a little insight into the cryptos themselves. Ethereum has grown quite a bit over the last couple quarters, mainly due, I would say mainly due, it has so many uses, and you have lots of things like Top Shot NBA, and you've got this horse racing one that's out now. There, a lot of stuff requires you to buy Ethereum, okay, and have access to it, and so it could be that that continues to grow. I thought that was interesting as well. Now, moving on to the assets on the platform, we talked about this. What's interesting is the institutional makes up a lot of the trading volume, okay? Almost twice as much as the retail guy, but take a look at the assets on the platform. That actually the retail person is almost, not quite, but is only 20% off of what the institutions have on there. So the retail guy, while they're not generating as much trading volume, they have a lot of assets on there. So that's interesting as well. And here's the percentage of assets on the platform. You see Bitcoin has gone down a little bit. The rest have stayed steady, including massive growth in other cryptos. So it looks like to me, in the broader crypto space, people are moving from Bitcoin to these other coins. Okay, so I thought that was interesting as well. Now, let's jump over to these numbers, because as an investor, this is really what you're going to pay attention to. And then we'll jump over to the stock chart. We see the stock is down here in the 250 range. We'll see if this is an area where we can buy this. Let's take a look at the financials first. On the right-hand column is December, so the end of the year or the beginning of the year really is how you probably want to look at that. And then finally, we've got the March quarter. And so we can kind of look at this from a quarterly view. We've got cash and cash equivalents, as you'd expect, pretty healthy on hand. We've got 1.9 billion. That is almost $1 billion over what they had before. They've got customer custodial funds. Again, this is listed as an asset, but obviously Coinbase would be in trouble with the DOJ, like potentially Binance is, if they happen to run off with this. But this also gives you visibility in the business, because look, at the beginning of the year, they had $3.7 billion worth of customer funds. Now they got nearly $6.3 billion. It just shows you the growth of that. Now, I want to show you, too, that they balance this off as a liability. Okay, so you have it here listed as an asset, but the custodial funds due to customers is balanced off almost dollar for dollar, not quite. I don't know. There's probably some accounting reasons why they don't have to balance it off dollar for dollar, but you notice here it's both an asset and a liability. So when you analyze this, if you want to analyze it from the balance sheet, it's a little bit different when you're looking at banks, when you're looking at an asset like Coinbase, because they do some odd things like that. So all things being considered, looks super, super clean, as you'd expect. We don't really have any debt on this business. Everything else just looking amazingly clean. And now let me tell you what gets me so excited. And boy, I have put Coinbase on the watch list. I have come very, very, very close to buying this stock. And I'm going to show you why here right now. So we've got 3 months ended here. We've got a 2020. This was last year on the right-hand column. This is this year on the left-hand column. We've got our revenue here on the top line. Take a look at this, guys. Okay, we've got net revenues. It was at 100, we'll call that $180 million, 180 million with an M last year. This year, $1.6 billion. $1.6 billion in a quarter. And last year, they were at 180 million. I cannot believe this. This is phenomenal. That is obviously a growth. I can't find a stock out in the stock market where this is happening. And here's the other just phenomenal thing about this. Here's some other revenues here that gives us a total of $1.8 billion worth of revenue in a quarter, when last year we were doing 190 million. This almost looks unreal to me. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't understand how this business works. It's phenomenal. I tell you what, guys, as good as that gets, honestly, I think it gets even better when we come down here and take a look at the expenses. Yes, they have grown, obviously, okay? This is a company that just went public, or they had a direct listing. They obviously have increasing expenses. When you grow this much on your top line, you're going to have a lot of other expenses. So we went from 151 to 813 on the operating side. So 151 million up to 813 million. But when you minus $1.8 billion minus 813 million, you get operating income for a quarter at nearly $1 billion. Hello. How long has it taken a Facebook, a Microsoft, an Amazon? Amazon sometimes doesn't even do it now. They're investing so much in their business, to operating income of nearly $1 billion, and to make nearly $1 billion off of $1.8 billion. This stock checks all the boxes: explosive top line growth, explosive gross margins, explosive operating margins. It's just absolutely phenomenal. You come down here to the net income side. Last year, they made $32 million. Look, this company has been profitable since last year, probably even before that. Net income coming in at $771 million. I tell you what, the insiders have been selling this stock a lot, and that is partly one of the reasons why this stock has been under pressure and just simply has not been able to get over kind of the direct listing price. But they deserve every penny of it, because these are absolutely pristine financials. This is as good as it gets. Now, obviously, you're getting diluted as well as a shareholder. You went from 66,000, I guess that is, up to 126,000 in terms of diluted shares. Last thing I want to show you is this cash flows. Whether or not it's even worth looking at cash flows, I don't know. I'll let you to decide. But we pull down this phenomenal I got to show this to you guys again. $771 million of net income off of $1.8 billion of revenue. This is just incredible. Okay. And then, so we get to add back in some customer funds, some stock-based compensation. When we're taking a look at cash flows, we got cash flows of $3.4 billion. It's just incredible. Okay. It's just absolutely incredible. This is why I don't necessarily think cash flows is a great way, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? Net cash provided by operating activities came in at $3.4 billion. That's for 3 months. Well, $3.4 billion in cash flows when you have $1.8 billion in total revenue doesn't make any sense. So that's why I don't really look at this company from a cash flow perspective, because how can you generate more cash than you had in total revenue? It's because they get to add back in the customer funds, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really just how they have to account for it based on the rules that they have to follow. So the way I would analyze this company is, first, you're looking at top line growth. Fantastic. Checks all the boxes there. I think the question is, I don't necessarily think we're going to be able to continue this type of top line growth, but this I think they're going to continue growing the top line. I don't think it's going to be this explosive. We're going to bolt on at $1.7 billion every year in terms of top line. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll prove me wrong. But what's just amazing about this is being able to print $987 million to the operating income side, which is it's like 50% like net margins, not gross margins, like net margins are nearly 50% on this. I tell you what, I really, really, really want to buy this stock. Okay, so the reasons why I haven't is I like to wait and see. Look, if I'm in this for the long term, it doesn't necessarily matter if I catch it at the lowest price. Doesn't matter if I get it down here at 250 or up here at 300. Quite frankly, probably not, but I think it's prudent as an investor if we take some time with this one. I got us on a 30-minute chart. It gives us kind of a broader view. We've seen this thing come up. This looks like a lot of IPO stocks. It comes out hot, makes a dip, takes a rally, and then takes a dip again. And here we are sitting on a level that appears is a level of support down here. The stock has bottomed back in just a couple weeks ago. It bottomed again today, right here at 250. I could see taking a stab at this one at that 250 mark. Okay. So, with the idea that you might have to dollar cost average into this one. So let's just say for whatever reason, I wanted 10 shares of Coinbase, which we'll call $2,500. At this 250-ish level, I'd probably buy 1 or 2 shares and wait and see what happens. If this thing rallies and it gets back up in here, no big deal. I can buy more shares up there, maybe more confidently that things have kind of turned the corner. Because here's the deal. This thing could continue to go lower. The market is looking at the exact same numbers that I am looking at here, and they are selling this stock and selling it off pretty rapidly. The market, in my opinion, is still trying to digest and understand this investment. So I don't personally need to risk a ton of my capital while the market is trying to figure that out. So the other thing is, I got an HB here. This is hard to borrow. People aren't allowed to short this stock yet. So we don't have full visibility into this one. Traders don't have full access to this one. So I would play it very tiptoe into an asset like this, because the other thing that we want to keep in mind is the Bitcoin chart and the Dogecoin chart and the Ethereum chart. I know these assets are off considerably today, and over the last couple of days, the Bitcoin chart has slid off. Okay, it was up at 60,000. Now it's at 48. But year to date, this thing is still up. Over the last year, this thing's up huge. A year ago, Bitcoin was at $9,000. Okay, now it's at $48,000, nearly $49,000. I personally don't see that type of growth in Coinbase. Okay, I don't necessarily see the stock of Coinbase having that type of return. So I can remain disciplined in the crypto space, continue to invest in a Bitcoin, continue to invest in an Ethereum coin, maybe some other alternative coins if that's what is, kind of strikes your pleasure, but eventually start adding Coinbase, which is kind of the service or somewhat of a derivative of those assets as well. The other thing is we've got our moving average turning negative, although it's on a 30-minute chart. I wouldn't necessarily play a lot of credence in that, but it appears to me when Coinbase, at least in the limited data that we have, when this thing sells off into the 250 range, it finds buyers down here in the 250 range and it rallies, okay? And that's kind of where we're at. We've got a $56 billion market cap on this one. We've got a PE, at least on this website, saying it's 43. I would argue that it's probably potentially less than that, because if you're printing on the net income side about $700 million, annualize that out and you're getting close to $3 billion or more. So yeah, you're actually at a PE, I think, less than this. Okay. Especially if the subsequent quarters can print as much net income as we can down here. This is a company that's actually pretty reasonably valued, especially when you compare it to other tech companies like a Facebook, a Google, a Microsoft, an Apple, a Tesla, especially a Tesla. This is an interesting stock. So, a little bit of a different video there. It's a stock I really like. I've shown some restraint in this one. I might get in here as early as tomorrow in this $250 range on this one. I like that it's found some footing at least 2 different times here, but I would be very, very cautious about jumping in at these levels. You break this 250 level, you get more insider selling, you get negative news, whatever it happens to be, this thing will pull back even further. And also, we're not exactly sure this Bitcoin's down 10%. If it starts printing these, Bitcoin's very, very volatile. I don't need to tell anybody that on this program, but if this thing starts peeling off 10, 15% in a week, 2 weeks, every other day, what does that do to the people on Coinbase, its assets, its fees it's generated, those types of things? Those are questions I still have, so I wouldn't necessarily look to go all in at these levels. But I tell you what, this company checks all the boxes from an operating perspective. In fact, this is as impressive of a company that I may have ever seen at this stage that they are at. It's more impressive than when Amazon was first starting out. It's more impressive than virtually every company, including Facebook, which I thought was phenomenal when it first went public as well. This is as impressive as I've ever seen. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll be back again soon with more. Good luck with your investments.